Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar. This is a webinar dedicated to the B2B commerce, and today's topic in particular is the technological ecosystem roadmap. We will be running two webinars on this topic. This is part one, and there will be part two. It is a series of B2B oriented webinars that we have embarked on carrying out for the course of last month, this month, and following months. And the reason we are looking into it is because we have taken as a company a strategic direction to support B2B businesses together with SAP. And so we wanted to share the insights that we have collected over the extensive expertise that we have in the field. We wanted to share it with the community, spark a conversation, open certain questions, and just generally reach out to our community and our business. So welcome everybody. We also have a guest speaker today, Branchspace. They have been our business partner on a couple of engagements. They really, their expertise, they'll have a chance to introduce themselves, but their expertise is very much in the user experience space. So they brought some very interesting insights that they will be sharing as well later in the session. And of course, please type in your questions. If you have any questions along the way, use the chat box to do that. Otherwise, in the end of the session, we will also have a bit of time to go through questions and answer them live. And all the materials, so the recording of this session as well as the deck will be shared with you afterwards, as long as you have clicked attending on LinkedIn event page. We will follow up with a message and a link where you can find all the materials. So let's start. Our agenda for today will be consisting out of 5 points. We will start with a brief introduction of Portaltech Reply. For some of you who are not so familiar with us or who haven't attended the previous webinar, we'll just give a quick introduction. If you would like a more in-depth introduction, please look for the first webinar we ran 2 weeks ago. There we dove a little bit deeper into who we are and various expertise that we have, and also will give an opportunity for Branchspace to introduce themselves. Then we will move on to 2 main content points. One will be talking about online and sales teams and how to align the two, how to build symbiosis that would most benefit your business. And then the second part will be focusing on everything around customer experience, customer feedback, customer data, customer sentiment. So some really interesting things that we will be sharing there. After that, we'll take a bit of time for questions and answers, and we will also share at the end of our deck our contact details and the plan for the future webinars, as well as contact details of Branchspace. So let's start with the first section about introduction. So who is Portaltech and Portaltech and Reply? So we are part of Reply. Reply is a network of companies, or about 100 companies worldwide. It is kind of a living network, so we are an agglomeration of consultancies. Each consultancy is narrowly specialized in a certain particular field. And you can think about any kind of technologies from ERPs to robotics to artificial intelligence and augmented reality. We do work with network operators, we do work with retailers, so we really supporting various businesses across the board. Our primary domicile is within Europe, but as you can see on the map, we do have branch out in Americas and Asia. In terms of Portaltech, our main focus and our main expertise lies within customer experience solution, optimization tools, and engineering. We started out as a Hybris Platinum partner before the acquisition by Reply had taken place. We at some point have attained Platinum Elite partnership with SAP, and we're the sole holder of this level for quite some time. However, after rebranding and as part of the Reply Group, which by the way holds a gold partnership with SAP today, Portaltech, we hold a silver partnership, but we're working to get it back up to the top level of partnership. Moving on, in terms of B2B implementations, I think these are the main three names that we have singled out amongst others. For your reference, just to give you an idea as to what is our background in the space and why we would like to share the insights on this topic. You'll have a chance to inspect this in more detail when we share the materials. And in general, across the board, these are our reference implementations. And you can see that we have served various companies across different verticals. You might notice as well that there is quite a bit of travel labels included there. And this is not by coincidence. This is actually because we have worked with SAP to develop their SAP Commerce Cloud Travel Accelerator. So there are a number of accelerators. There's a B2B accelerator, there's a B2C accelerator, there's a financial services accelerator, and there's a travel accelerator. And that's the one that Portaltech had been developing in partnership with SAP, but primarily it's been our developers and engineers that have worked on that code. So that's in brief about us. I would like to hand over now to Alison. Alison, if you could come off mute, please, at this point. I would like to hand over to you for the introduction of Branch Space.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name's Allison. I'm here with Radu, also from Branch Space, who is our Director of Consulting Services. Branch Space is a technology and services provider. Our digital commerce platform transforms really how retailers connect with today's digitally savvy consumers. Our domain expertise is really deeply entrenched in technology, strategy, and architecture, service, product, UX design, engineering, and development. From our offices in London and Krakow, we've helped prominent brands like Lufthansa Group, IAG, and Aegean to reinvent retail with next generation shopping experiences.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much, Alison. All right, thank you so much for that. So let's now move on to the content section of webinar. And the first section that we will be talking about is online and sales and how you could build symbiosis between the two. Now, the reason we would like to talk about this specifically is because we see online articles being published with names such as, "Is the B2B salesman dead?" So we would really like to firmly reassure you that no, they're not dead. But let's look at some of the research that we have found. So a research by McKinsey & Company has done a survey around the interactions between B2B customers and their product and service providers. And they have asked the customers about the kind of interaction that they have with their provider and what are the main pain points and how best to interact with their systems and their people. So some really, really interesting insights came out of it. So one that struck us in particular is the fact that repeat business doesn't really want or require necessarily human attention. You know, if a sales rep keep reaching out to you but you have already purchased your products, you know what you need. There isn't a lot of, it's a little bit mechanical. You could do it yourself, so to say, right? And you might not necessarily want to have that long conversation on the phone about reordering the same machinery over and over again, or same consumables over and over again. So, when once the process is established, then you would rather do it yourself and do it quickly. On the other hand side, the interesting data there shows that actually salesmen tend to focus their attention much more on new business and kind of put the ongoing or existing business on the back burner. And that actually, in some cases, could really sour the customer experience for the B2B customers. If their orders are not being placed timely, if their reorders are not, are being overlooked or are lagging, or they're not getting response from the salesman, they will tend to grow quite frustrated. So what could be a good solution for that? So, it doesn't, I don't think it's rocket science really, but how would you structure your interactions the best way, given you do have a sales team and you have an online channel? How would you maximize the two? So, naturally, as we said, new business best belongs with the sales team. Customers that are just onboarding, that don't really know your products and services, don't really understand your delivery model, but not understand right away your pricing framework, are best suited to help by a human being. However, worth noting that in that process, you must embed a very important step. At the end of the purchasing process, you want to create an online account for your customers so that they can reorder themselves. So this is where we really come to repeat business. I've ordered these products before. I know what I'm doing. I know the pricing strategy. I understand delivery methodology. Everything's great. I just want to go and I want to buy it and I want it now, right? You direct them to online channel. You set up an account for them. You show them around as a sales representative. You say, look, we've ordered you this. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for your business. If you would like to reorder that, you don't need to come to me. Here is your account online. You can just log in. You can find what you want. You can click reorder and it will be with you within, let's say, 3 days, right? Fantastic. Easy, simple. They can do it in the evening, outside of working hours. That's it. However, we have two exception cases as well, at least two major exception cases, because I think that there's probably more. But for sake of this presentation and this webinar, let's just look at the two main ones. So one is repeat business with amends. This is the customer is existing. They have ordered before, but they want changes. And they might use some kind of consultation with regards to your products. Perhaps they want to order a different model. Maybe the previous model didn't work that well. Maybe they want to rediscuss some terms and conditions. Different things can happen. And the other one is exceptions. So troubleshooting. They can't log in. They can't find the right product. The payment details aren't working, for example. They get stuck on the website. All sorts of things. This is where you would like to actually join the two together, the sales team and the online channel. And this is where solutions that support assisted purchasing come in. This is really nifty part of the solution. Not a lot of companies actually utilize it 100%, and I think a lot really overlook that capability. However, it's extremely powerful. Let's look at it on the basis of SAP Commerce ASM module. So ASM module is a very mature technology. It's been there for a long time. Essentially what it allows you, it allows the customer representative or sales representative to take over a journey that has been happening on a commerce engine, that has been happening online. And they allow the customer complete or help the customer complete this journey online. As well, this capability could be tuned to start a journey in real. So, for example, agent could create an account. If an agent receives a call, they could create an account for the customer, and they could compile the order, and they could help the customer check out. And in this process, the customer will also receive login credentials for their account and will be able to right away log into their account, see their order, make any necessary changes. So what are the things that an ASM module would support? Well, first of all, it'll help, you could help customer navigate your product catalog, right? So you as a B2B provider, you might not have a very straightforward catalog. Your pricing might not be very straightforward. Your delivery options might not be straightforward. To help them navigate your catalog or to recommend the best product that suits their needs, you could help them do that through the ASM module. The next step is you have opportunity for commercialization. As an agent, so-called agent, let's just use that word to refer to all the customer service agents and all the sales reps. As an agent, you can have special privileges set up in the system so that special types of products or a whole separate catalog of products and promotions and discounts could be available to you so that you could increase conversion on this particular journey with the customer you're talking to. So that opens a whole host of opportunities to apply special promotions, special discounts, have a face-to-face negotiation with the customer, but also upsell and cross-sell them. Next, we come to the important part of checkout and assistance. Checkout is actually a point in the buying journey where things could go wrong. And if the customer isn't unable to check out, even if they love your product, they're not very likely to come back. So it is very important that this is where you convert lead to cash, right? This is where you have built up all that engagement with your customer. And this is the most important point where they actually pay for your services, where they commit to this contract. So being able to provide real human assistance on the spot, live, within the journey, without having to cancel it and then reorder it on the phone and so on, obviously is a great possibility, great capability to have in your system. Further, self-service assistance obviously pertains to all the questions around my account, anything, so setting up a my account, managing my account for the customer. Maybe some customers might not be very tech savvy. You know, if you got a CEO and he's, I don't know, 55 years old, maybe he doesn't have time. Maybe he prefers to speak to someone who can update his address for him. I mean, it's simple things, but it's all about customer centricity and being able to do that rather than forcing people down certain routes that have been predefined for whatever reason in your product management roadmap. So this is really about a lot of, great flexibility to do just about anything you need to do for the customer throughout the journey. And last but not least, troubleshooting. So obviously, SM allows you to take over customer journey and really see with the customer's eyes what the system does. So if there are any kind of technical issues on the site, this is a great opportunity to really fish them out. And if you have easy access for the customer to get, let's say, a callback within the web page, if they just have that button, I need assistance, they can click on that, type in their phone number. Customer service agent could call them up within a couple of minutes, take over the journey, look at what's happening, see if the system is not behaving correctly, report it as bug, help them to finalize their order with special permissions that they have in the system, and everyone walks away happy. You got your bug, you can improve your system, and the customer got their order still and achieved their goal as well. So really, really powerful capability. I think hugely underutilized generally. I think a lot of companies are building separate solutions to do all this. This comes out of the box with SAP Commerce. Now, let me catch my breath for a second before we move on to the customer section. So the customer section, we're going to talk about customer experience. And there are three really important areas to that. And I would like to give you a brief overview of those. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about customer data. It is needless to say that with the prominence of GDPR, the questions around managing a collection of customer data, management of customer data, and appropriate use of customer data has really come into light. So we're going to touch on that topic. We're going to talk about types of customers. We're going to talk about the types of users that you might have for customer data and the GDPR compliance. Then we will move on to potential solutioning around managing customer sentiment and collecting customer feedback. And last but not least, I will hand over to Branch Space to talk about customer experience, actually the magic. Sort of, if you get it right, then it's all, your business going really, really well. And if you get it wrong, it can go terribly wrong. So I will hand over to the guys to talk about that. And in particular, we've singled out some functionalities that we believe are the most potent amongst a variety of front-end experience technologies and tools. And there is some very strong statistical evidence that these particular capabilities can increase your conversion rates in magnitudes of 6 times to and above. So let's start with the customer data. Customer data. What does customer data generally consist of? Let's look at different ways to collect customer data. So first of all, we have transactional data. This is where we really think about past orders, interactions with customer service, interactions with sales team, any kind of other transactional interactions that you might have. You might be collecting some data while having sales meetings with the client. You know, there could be some observations that you might be collecting. Then the second is behavioral. So this is more to do with the way that they navigate the site. So you could be tracking customer journeys, you could be checking how they go through from homepage to the product catalog to the product detail page. You might be tracking what they're actually looking at, which sections get more attention, which section less so. These are the things. So you could be, let's say, categorizing your customers, for example, in different groups. So someone who's window shopping, right? Or someone who's browsing for technical specifications. If you're selling complex machinery, if let's say you're selling turbines, then there might be someone who's checking the requirements of their infrastructure versus the technical requirements of the turbines you sell. So you might want to capture these kind of leads in particular if this is relevant for your business, because you know that that customer is already looking for a solution. You know that they are past the point where they are still deciding whether they need to buy something or not. You know they need to buy something, and now they're looking for the exact fit of the solution. So this is also could be really, really insightful source of data. The third is volunteered information. So if a customer had set up an account with you, then they likely have entered certain details. If they appreciate the value of personalization, they might provide things such as what is their line of business, what is their position, what is their role within the organization, what is the purpose of their visit, what are they looking for typically, what kind of types of products they're interested in. These are the things that couldn't be enforced on them to provide under the GDPR today, but some of the customers might volunteer this kind of information under the My Account section within your commerce engine to help you personalize your offering towards them. So this is really important as well. And then if we go to the last one is obviously social media. So you might be following your customers on, let's say, LinkedIn, or you might be following them on their Facebook pages. You might be following them even on Instagram. I mean, Instagram used to be really kind of private life oriented, but more and more businesses are actually finding themselves on Instagram because this is maybe where their customers are. And so you might be following them in turn, right? Customer of my customer kind of thing. So now that we've examined what types of customer data we could be collecting, let's briefly look at the uses of this customer data. So first and foremost, and something that we've talked about already a little bit, is providing omni-channel experience. And omni-channel, maybe as the buzzword, has had its days, but it's no less relevant. You still want to be able to identify a customer as he switches channels. We've talked about the ASM module, assisted purchasing, and this is a great example of where you use customer information to identify the customer and be able to seamlessly switch them from one channel to the other and provide excellent experience across all the touch points. So that's one. The other one, customer data can give you some great insights for your business. It can help you drive business intelligence. It can help you optimize your business processes. it tells you what kind of business you are doing, who is actually buying your products and services. So there's really a lot of information that's encapsulated in that. And of course, last but not least, knowing who your customers are helps you shape the marketing strategy that best suits the kind of customers you're dealing with. Now, all of this sounds fantastic and great, and a lot of companies have been collecting a lot of customer data over decades, as you might know. However, there have been some abuses, let's say, to these practices, and so GDPR came into play a couple of years back and had since reshaped dramatically the way that the customer data is being collected, stored, managed, and processed. So in this context, there are a number of solutions, and I think, given that we talk about the technological strategic roadmap, there is one solution that if you're thinking about SAP Commerce Engine as your solution for your commerce needs, that we would really recommend SAP Customer Data, SAP Customer Data Cloud to be specific. And this solution is great because it comes pre-integrated with SAP Commerce. We have had some experience doing that integration, and it just takes care of everything. In particular, from the point of view of GDPR, it provides transparency and control for the customer. It helps managing consents. In case of renewal, it also will trigger consent renewals. It takes care of consumer privacy, and it helps, it makes the customer data available for all of your, across all of your solution architecture, for all of your systems that might potentially need reference into customer data. It makes it in a non-invasive and an anonymized way. Excuse me, my hiccup there. And so it helps you really build a trusted customer relationship that you are striving to build with your customer without infringing of their privacy and giving them full control over their data. So really, really useful, and we believe a strategically necessary solution in your solution architecture. Now, let's look at the different feedback channels. So besides storing all this customer data, you also want to actively manage this relationship. And so it is important that you actually listen to what the customers are saying to you, right? It's kind of like a Silicon Valley motto, listen to your customers, right? But is it that easy to read all the comments and listen to all the customer service calls? So some companies embrace structured data collection approaches. We're all familiar with ratings. We're all familiar with feedback forms, and we're all familiar with surveys. Fantastic. However, these forms of feedback collection are inherently flawed because they just give you one scale, or they give you a set of options you can choose from. They are not geared to collecting unstructured data or customer sentiment. So all the fluffy stuff that happens in the comments, all the fluffy stuff that happens with customer service on the calls. And this is really where a customer can tell you things that you haven't thought about. So it's actually the most valuable part of the interaction. However, it's very difficult to capture. But we believe that only about 15 to 25% of the information is the information you capture through structured methods. And about 75 to 85% of the feedback that you could be leveraging very, very well for your business goes effectively unnoticed because it's in a form that cannot be easily processed by current solutions. Then I just want to briefly touch on this. As many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with NPS. For those who are not familiar with NPS, I'm just going to quickly summarize the concept. Net Promoter Score is an indicator of how well you're doing with your business. And it is inherently skewed towards the promoters for the reason that if you're happy with the product, you're less likely to go online and write a review about it than if you have a bad product. So if you are unhappy with the product or service you receive, you're more likely to go online and write a long review. So, with the trend of the customer centricity, NPS has been brought in as a way of actually creating a KPI for this for the customer sentiment around your business and your products. And I think it had been more or less unanimously adopted by most large businesses around the world as unified KPI for customer satisfaction surveying. So let's look now at one solution that actually managed to get past the unstructured data. So this is a solution which we find very, very interesting, and we think it is strategically very promising. And this is something we would actually recommend from the point of view of our own brand. So if you're looking at managing customer experience closely, if you really want to dig deep into the customer sentiment, then this is the solution that can help you structure the unstructured data, so to say. The main advantage of Qualtrics is that they have built some very efficient machine learning engines. And they have cracked the code on the reviews and on the customer service center interactions. So they have two solutions, Text IQ and Voice IQ, that analyze respectively the text flow of comments, so text stream, text data that can be coming from different sources. It could be your Amazon reviews, it could be reviews on your website, it could be emails that are coming into your company. On the other hand side, there's the Voice IQ. So this you're thinking about the customer service call center interaction. So all the conversations you're recording, they can be analyzed by this solution, and you could be getting the assessment of a customer sentiment for specific interaction, and what they call for can also be identified, and then you can gauge the general mood of the customer, so to say. And then you have three more of a number crunching applications, so Driver IQ, Stats IQ, and Predict IQ, and these really focus around analyzing this data, crunching the numbers, identifying correlations between different trends, see if certain processes improvement or degradation in certain processes is affecting other processes or affecting customer satisfaction within other parts of their journey, as well as also helping to predict which customers are likely to churn. So if you identify a customer on a couple of calls with your sales reps, and they have been writing certain reviews online, you can pick them out. You can pick out those that are relatively unhappy or you believe they might churn, and you actually could approach them with a special offer, or you might look into their case specifically to see how their customer journey had been so adversely affected that they are now close to churning. So again, if you really want to, reach for the stars, so to say, this is the solution that most prominent household brands use today to manage customer experience and gets insight into their customer interactions. So so this is on terms of data and ingest, analyze, and then of course Qualtrics also provides you with really useful dashboards that help you understand each customer journey and where certain drops happen, and if these drops happen, then you get alerted and you can look into that, and you can obviously address it with the respective part of your business. So great management information tool to improve customer journey for your customers and collect information. So this is it on my part. And now we're getting to the customer experience part of the webinar, and this is where I would like to hand over to lovely Alison for their part of this journey.
Thanks, Carol. I'll just share my screen. Okay, Carol, I think you've disabled screen sharing.
Just a second, I'll fix this for you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Just, oh. I'll have to make you a host, and you probably have to change that back later. There you
Okay.
are.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Okay, so building an engaging digital experience informed by customer data and confirmed by feedback channels, as Carol spoke about, remains what may ultimately gel your customers to the product. So this requires building and utilizing user empathy in all technological processes. From a UX perspective, B2B customers and the B2C consumer are not entirely radically different. They respond to friction in the user journey in the same way, with cart abandonments and site bounces. Furthermore, B2B consumers are likely repeat customers with very specific, very particular, very regular orders. They're all indeed very likely to return to the site. This degree of crossover enables the same techniques to be implemented at a functional level across an e-commerce site. In the next few minutes, we'll focus on how personalization, contextualization, semantic search, and UX optimization combine to create that engaging digital experience. To begin with, personalization. Dominant players in the industry over the past decade have really shifted the landscape of e-commerce sites. Users no longer simply respond to, but in fact expect personalized content. 80% of shoppers are more likely to buy from a company that offers a personalized experience, and on average, 71% of consumers express some level of frustration with their shopping experience when it's impersonal or relevant. This evidence is made clear when we look at these use cases. So to start with, recent searches and recently viewed products, the site should have the ability to expose and make easily accessible the 3 to 5 most recent searches, and the ability to extend to another 20 recent searches. It should also expose and make easily accessible the most recent 8 to 10 viewed products, with the ability to extend to around another 100 most recently viewed projects. Of course, these figures are kind of just very general, but those numbers could be drilled down into further with repeat testing to discover what the optimal number of products is to display. For further personalized search and recommendations, on the second use case, we need to enable or the ability to optimize sorting search results by relevance and issue product recommendations based on a user's known history of queries, click-throughs, and purchased products. For retained search results, filtering, ordering, we need to selectively and kind of smartly ascertain which filtering and sorting parameters a user would like to have applied as a default. That is to say, we need to essentially allow the user, if we don't have this automatically, to allow the user to manually configure the default filtering and sorting parameters for a more personalized view. Finally, with personalization, we should also enable the user to activate automated assisted shopping features. So this is like your price alert, scheduled and recurring orders, and product availability notifications. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of go past recent searches. So this is activating autocomplete suggestions, which is very basic and should be most familiar, as well as recently viewed products. And I'd like to jump into retained search results and filtering and ordering. So in the first graphic, we have some pretty, standard options for filtering that we've all seen in B2B and B2C contexts. What allows us to create a personalized view here is our always keep sorted tick box. This allows users to manually configure the results to an ideal view. So the price sensitive can always come back to a low to high display. These personalized search recommendations from our order history, we're able to identify trends and patterns in purchase behavior. We can utilize that data along with other conceptualizations about the user, informed by other consumer data, to populate a display feed of similar products, either higher quality, better rated products or products on promotion, whatever we want to sell to them. We switch over to contextualization. So this can sometimes be confused for personalization, but these have distinctly different implications. Personalization seeks to really deliver tailored experiences by using customer-specific data points, such as search history and explicit product purchases. On the other hand, contextualization relies not on the individual, but on the terms of their context. So we contextualize by placing the user within a group on the context of their search and what choices other users have made in the past that made in a similar context. So the use cases for these, we have search autocomplete. So for implementation at the site level, we can consider auto-completion of search queries based on the most popular similar queries within a predefined context, such as display language, time of year, or the user's own order history. We can, in the second use case, also expose to the user what products other users with similar context, like a similar search phrase, a same viewed product, similar products in the basket or order have purchased. We can also leverage contextual data, like a user's language, country, type of company, their industry, day of week, to optimize product search results in real time. For example, we could automatically change the order of the first 100 search results for a query based on the most clicked through products for the same query, language, country, and user company type or industry. Finally, we can leverage statistical analysis and machine learning to determine the most effective urgency messages to be displayed in order to maximize conversion. For example, users might respond differently based on their context urgency messaging, informing users of an impending price change versus a low stock alert. So we're going to focus on these last two. Right. So for leveraging context to optimize search results, just as an example, we can leverage context here in different marketplaces. So in this scenario, we use the same query for Cube across the UK and the German markets. On the right-hand side, the user in the UK context is seeing just a very generic view of Cube, the movie, game Cube, Fire TV Cube for Amazon and whatnot. But as a difference, in Germany, there's actually a major bike brand called Cube. So because the second side, we've identified that the user's context is within the German market, we are able to show them these results that also point back to the Cube bike. So this next example comes from our own platform. To better illustrate how this can really be implemented across several persona types, in our digital commerce platform, we have an example from an airline experience. So in the screen shown during the checkout process for a flight, we can show completely different UI components for users we've identified as business travelers, as couples, and as families. The price-sensitive family might see emphasis placed on price, enabling them to easily select the cheapest trip. So as you can see here on the very left, All the prices are clearly displayed. The business traveler may see a higher level view of available flight times, as these persona has really been tagged as being schedule sensitive. So it's a bit of a step up from just focusing on price itself. And then for the couple, this prioritizes comfort before their weekend getaway. They're shown different amenities across the airline's economy and business class instead. Finally, if we get to urgency messaging and contextualization, we have options to appeal or impact to users differently based on their context. Again, the user searching for a flight, again below with the London Bucharest, can receive a warning based on historical trends that prices are likely to increase in the next few days, or lock-in purchases now. So this is kind of, again, FOMO messaging that we've used before in marketing many times. So the third part of these techniques is really semantic search. In recent years, we've seen a growing emphasis on semantic search. This falls under a larger trend, which we see the rise of voice-based shopping and like similar updates to Google's algorithms. So if you think about Hummingbird, RankBrain, and BART, all those things, these are all indicating the importance of understanding user intent and meeting consumer expectations. So semantic search specifically is similar to natural language processing and other NLU processes, in that it drills really into the nuances of a search query and hones in on the user intent. So search becomes more conversational, and we improve the quality, context, and specificity of search results. Site search in general is incredibly important for conversion rates. So studies by consultancy here have shown that conversion rates through site search can be 50% higher. And that's obviously a dramatic improvement. Just give me 1 second to give myself a chance to breathe before we jump into these use cases. Okay, so with semantic search, we can really figure out user intent. Search engines have conditioned users to find results by synonyms and by long-tail keywords. And any semantic site search, must be able to achieve the same level of relevancy. Search results can also be really informed by previous sequential searches. So a user's second, third, fourth, fifth sequential search becomes increasingly narrower and more relevant without discouraging the user. In a B2B commerce site, we'll also likely have repeat users again, so both frequent and infrequent. We could theoretically utilize the order history to inform semantic search or implement search capabilities deeper within a user profile, within the order history specifically, to facilitate easy reordering of repeat purchases. Again, removing barriers to the user journey. So in all scenarios, the results the user receives for their search are ultimately more relevant, which increases the likelihood of conversion. And that's kind of very obvious stuff. So if we think for a quick example, how semantic search works, we could focus on the idea of a lens. So lens, it's a very ambiguous query. It could refer to a camera lens, to glasses. So the keyword you're choosing isn't really being used to describe in the best way a normal object. Semantic search allows us to kind of burrow past that and define ultimately what the user intends to look for and say, yes, it is a camera lens. If we go to UX optimization as our last pillar here, implementing best practice principles of good UX design should really follow those of the B2C world. It's probably been said previously to you many times, but to root us in understanding, UX emphasizes empathizing with the user and designing a digital experience. Eliminating these barriers is just as important in a B2B context, as these are hurdles to conversion. So if we look at our 4 different use cases here, optimizing your UX specifically entails, as a first point, ensuring that a user always generates actionable search results. For example, when the particular item in question isn't available, when there's out of stock items, the results should suggest alternative products. Reducing friction is a second case in the checkout process, relates to everything as simple as making buttons and CTAs to add to basket more prominent, reducing the number of clicks it takes to add an item to basket, or to fill in billing and shipping details. It also means allowing repeat information to be copied if necessary for form completion, and confirming with users where they are in the checkout process at every step. Then again, as Carol kind of mentioned previously, self-service is increasingly important. It's critical for conversion to make sure that pretty much everything's almost available for self-service. You should be able to direct your users to reach out to a sales agent only when they want. If you're redirecting the conversion process to another platform, such as email, you can see a huge drop-off of users who never complete their purchase, especially as we're talking about this millennial generation that's becoming the bulk of your buyers right now and of your consumers. So yeah, this is done really through implementation of chatbots on websites. And again, this should be elective rather than forced decisions. You shouldn't push a user into one or the other channel. Where general querying can be handled on the site through that chatbot and simply smooth that flow out. Finally, it's critical to have really intelligent flows. This includes automatically adjusting flows based on the user's context. So for example, displaying the purchased order 1 hour after its submission in the top navigation allows users to easily facilitate a change to that order if it's necessary. Orders which have been canceled or modified should appear at the top of the recent orders list rather than buried below. As we know, users like to see above the fold information, which means very high up on the web page. And then for repeat customers, it's important to enable ways to very easily repurchase the same order or adding items to a recent order. So let's just visit some examples. In this first implementation of alternative product selection, we'll have simplified search here that drills down into filtering by width. It's a little hard to see, but everything on this left page relates to width of a sheet. And if you can kind of tell by clicking into that, this wields 0 search results, which is an ideal path. At this point, you've basically set the user into a pathway where, because they've returned no search results, they're either going to move from your website into another website and find that information on there, the product that they're searching for, or they'll try endless numbers of permutations to try and get the ideal search result to bring up. So this is where alternative product selection becomes really critical. Instead of displaying 0 search results, there needs to be some kind of confirmation that either the filters you specified aren't actually realistic for the product, or there's like this is an out of stock item, or just suggesting supplementary products. So in all of these, overall, what's really clear going through these techniques is their integrated implementation, especially at a site level, can ultimately improve conversion rates drastically. There is, however, no real specific number that can drive home the impact on conversion, as conversion rates really differ a lot to industry. They're very specific. We've seen a lot of case studies that all vary dramatically. There's a case study on Amazon that claims that the average rate of conversion for the top 500 retailers is 3.32%, but Amazon's average conversion rate is roughly 13%, which is obviously drastic. And if we consider all of those in different verticals, it might be close to true. What's maybe a bit more realistic and maybe more specific, and does hit home really in relative terms, is that we can pretty much see in those cases that conversion rates have increased 50% as compared to what was shown previously on sites in a lot of individual scenarios. This means that the implementation of these techniques that results in a jump from an 8% to a 12% conversion rate speaks volumes. And I think it's just critical to remember that at the end of the day. And at this point, I will hand back to you, Carol.
Thank you very much, Alison. That's been really, really interesting and insightful. We really covered quite a number of UX optimizations and the features that we also believe that are absolutely key in driving the right experience for your B2B customers on a commerce solution. So, Alison, could you just hand over the host rights, please, in the participant box?
Yes, absolutely. Apologies, I think I'm having some trouble with
If you hover over my name in participant box, there should be a drop down little button called more, and there you can make me a host again.
Great. There we go.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, now let's go back to our webinar deck. So at this point, we are at the questions and answers point of our webinar. And actually, we've got already a question. Let me just find it. Gosh, where did it go? Here it is. So Mike is asking, are there any best practices for UX optimization of a B2B solution that should be considered? I think Alison and Rado, this is probably a question for you guys.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one, Kirill. Hi everyone, this is Radu speaking. Alison introduced me earlier. I'm the director of consulting at Branch Space. So actually, Mike, all the optimization techniques that Alison has presented, personalization, contextualization, semantic search, and general UX polishing or optimization, we feel that all these are very relevant, profoundly relevant for B2B commerce, digital commerce solutions. Ultimately, the online behavior of a B2B shopper is not that fundamentally different from a B2C shopper. The most fundamental difference that we see is that B2B shoppers obviously tend to be much more of returning users and multi-purchase users than B2C shoppers, which means that actually the amount of friction and the shopping experience brings for them is much more important, and over time it accumulates into a greater frustration than the equivalent for a B2C shopper. So in particular, things like contextualization of the offering and contextualization of the UX and UX polishing and or friction reduction, all these things will actually have a much more dramatic, could have a more dramatic impact. Of course, as when Alison said earlier that these have dramatic impacts on conversion, and this is obviously quite true, we have to be mindful that conversion doesn't directly equate with sales, because decreased conversion doesn't necessarily mean a lost sale. It can also mean a longer path to a sale or to a conversion. So when we say that such techniques, and it's absolutely true and legitimate to say that in combination, all these optimizations can lead to a 50% increase of your conversion rate. it doesn't necessarily mean that your revenue is going to grow by 50% as well. The actual incremental revenue growth may only be 10 or 20%. However, we also have to be mindful that the more satisfied your users are going to be with their digital shopping experience, their loyalty is also going to grow. So the value of all these optimizations doesn't only come from increased conversion and increased basket values, but it also comes from increased loyalty and general satisfaction of your users.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rado. We have another question. So Simon is asking Portaltech, what is your experience with B2B Accelerator? I jumped a little bit. Yeah, Accelerator that we mentioned, and how much organizations can really expedite the solution development. This is a great question. Thank you, Simon. Well, actually, we have set out a little challenge for ourselves quite recently. Well, we've utilized B2B Accelerator on our previous implementations, obviously, but we wanted to know how quickly we could get a B2B storefront and a commerce engine beneath it up and running. How short of time do we need? And actually, we were able to get a storefront up and running in actually 2 weeks with a very small team. So there is a lot already available in the B2B Accelerator. The things you want to think about is, of course, the data model is slightly different to the B2C, but also capabilities, a vast amount of capabilities around ordering, reordering, personalization, and also something that's inherently specific to B2B is, of course, the organizational structure management, and that applies as much for the clients in terms of the buyers and the approvers and budget management, permissions management, and workflow management within that structure. And of course, the same kind of organizational structure can be maintained then for the selling organization. So on the side of the negotiations and price quotations, permissions for offering additional discount, all of that actually comes out of the box with B2B Accelerator. So we believe that generally an SAP Commerce Accelerator can reduce your implementation effort from 100% to anywhere around 60% probably. So it's a quite dramatic reduction, and there's really added value in using one of the accelerators. Of course, noteworthy to mention that the more customization you would impose on an implementation, the smaller the impact will be of the accelerator proportionally, but nonetheless, SAP Commerce, if we look at it compared to other providers out there, other solution providers out there on the market today, is probably the best geared towards serving the B2B market. It is the most evolved and comprehensive solution out there. Actually, in one of our following webinars, we will be honing in specifically on these areas. So we will be talking about best practices of implementation and functional best practices for B2B commerce implementation. That will be in 4 weeks' time from now. So we will share the list of all the webinars we're planning. Please join that webinar. We'll be talking in more depth about that. All right, and then we have one more. Roy is asking, in many organizations, customer data often lives in various silos, with call center, e-commerce platform, web apps, social media. There's no sharing or integration of customer data. How would you start putting the customer first and enabling the real use of that data? Roy, great question. This really hits the nail on the head in the context of customer data cloud solution. That is really the solution that helps you transition all the siloed data and really create your customer 360 view in a single point. Be able to manage this data, collection of this data, be able to manage sharing of this data between different applications. So instead of this data being mastered in the call center. It is being mastered in the CDC, and then the call center can pull the necessary data as and when required. There is also possibility to anonymize this data. So let's say if certain systems do not need the name of the customer, do not need the email of the customer, then interaction can be tokenized. So that would simplify your GDPR compliance, right? Especially also if you want to process data externally somewhere, if you want to run additional analytics, and let's say if you were to use a third-party provider for this kind of services, again, anonymization of customer data in this context becomes really, really important, because that reduces your operational cost of data management and compliance. All right, thank you very much. It's been really good questions so far. Rado, sorry, you wanted to add something to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to your answer, Kirill, to Roy's question about where do you start with customer data. And from our experience, and we have supported multiple organizations, some from, let's say, medium-sized up to very large, very complex organizations in data projects. And one thing that we definitely see is the huge fragmentation of the sources of customer data that you are referring to, Roy. And also this unfortunately comes with complexity, project time, and obviously cost in integrating all those data sources, especially as some of them can be quite legacy technologies as well. This can easily drive the cost of integrating all sources of data into millions and make it, you know, a years long process. So what we would typically recommend in such a situation would be start with a very clear and efficient prioritization of the use cases where you want to leverage this data. Really start by figuring out how you want to use the customer data that you have. And once you have a priority of, let's say, your top 3, top 5 such use cases, look at what are the data sources in your organization that for which you actually need the data. In our experience, a complex company organization can have anywhere between 20 and 200 different customer data sources that could be leveraged. Integrating all of them in a reasonable time frame is often completely unrealistic. So start with those data sources, which may only be 3, 4, 5, that are really bringing 80%. Start with the 20% of the data sources that bring 80% of the value for the use cases that you really want to focus on. So for example, if it's e-commerce personalization that you want to apply and where you think the value for your organization is, you may not actually need so much in terms of call center customer data, for example, which can be tricky to integrate, or you may not need, I don't know, what other types of data that you may have somewhere around your company. Really focus on that delivers a value. Integrate those sources first. Start delivering some measurable value for the organization, some improves in conversion rate, an improve of conversion rate, or improve of average order value. And once these start flowing in, I think you will also find that supporting the organization for adding more data sources also grows exponentially. And where typically at the beginning of a large data project, it's an uphill battle to get people from different departments and silos to share their data and support a data integration project. Once people start seeing the material value that such optimization techniques deliver, they will start volunteering and proactively supporting an integration project.
Absolutely, yes. It's about building the value with your stakeholders and really showing them the benefit of them sharing this data and centralizing this data. Absolutely, you're spot on, Rado. All right. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anyone wants to raise any other questions before we carry on? Right. So Mike is really interested in UX optimization mentioned earlier. So I think this is also for you, Rado, or Ellison.
Yeah, Mike, I think we've largely run out of time here, but if you are available and interested, it would be our pleasure to organize a follow-up discussion on this, and we can go in a lot more depth as well if that's what you are looking for. So can we assume UX is decoupled from the technology? Yeah, very good question and a lengthy discussion point as well. Our recommendation is actually to decouple the user interface from the underlying e-commerce platform. And SAP Commerce, for example, has been evolving in that direction for a long time. What we typically see now in best practice e-commerce implementations are solution architectures where you have a dedicated e-commerce platform, and then on top of that you have a digital experience platform like TripLake, the solution that our company provides. And besides this, you can also have an ecosystem of additional components like customer data platforms, recommendations engines, also, for example, things like notification hubs, payment platforms. So in general, the more decoupled the architecture is, the better. And definitely the user interfaces, the front ends, should be largely decoupled from the e-commerce platform. But I think, as I said, it's probably best to take this discussion offline, or we could have a dedicated webinar on this topic as well, if you and other people are interested in deep diving into such a topic.
Yes, actually, we might be able to dive into this in one of the future webinars. Rado, let's take it away and add it to our schedule. That sounds great. All right, indeed, as Rado mentioned, we're a little bit pressed for time. I'm tempted to take, the questions have been quite good today. I'm tempted to take another one if anyone has. Otherwise, we will probably wrap up this session. All right. It seems like we're good for questions. So thank you very much everyone for your participation and for attending this webinar. It's been great to have you all on board. So we will share the deck and we will share the recording of this webinar so you can review. From Portaltech's side, these are the webinars that we're currently planning to run. So the next one will be in 2 weeks. We will be talking further about technological ecosystem roadmap. And we will be talking in more depth around the B2B API enablement and evolution, about mobile commerce and the role it plays and how you could get the mobile channels running on an advanced commerce engine, as well as we will be talking about the role of marketplaces as well in the B2B market space. And then we'll be following up with functional and implementation best practices, as I mentioned, and we will wrap up on the 30th of July with a demo of a B2B implementation, the demo that we have prepared within Portaltech. These are our contact details. So you will get this, you will get the link to this deck, and you can then click through and connect to all of us. I think Gio has also been on the call, and myself, you see on the right bottom hand side. And there is also a slide that includes all the details of Branch Space if you wanted to get in touch with them. Of course, the LinkedIn profiles are linked into this slide, so you can click through and connect with Rado and Alison. So at this point, I would like to thank everyone for your participation and for your time. I hope you found our webinar useful and interesting, and we're looking forward to hear from you. If you would like to discuss any kind of topics in more detail, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through email or LinkedIn, any way you feel comfortable. And we're looking forward to talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.